Thank you, moderator, for your kind introduction. First, let me bring you greetings from Oxfam, and particularly the totality of Oxfam in Africa, a continent for which we have a long history and passion and hope and belief. Thanks to the organizers, NRGI, Echo News, Publish What You Pay, TJNA, PowerShift Africa, and of course, my own Oxfam for pulling this together. And especially assembling a very solid panel which includes some of our leading thinkers on the issues of energy, transition, and extractives and climate change in Africa. I'm pleased to see people like Titus, who until a few months ago was a colleague at Oxfam leading our fight against social justice and extractives in Southern Africa. OSF was very wise to take you from us, Titus. Where are we coming from on these matters of energy and transition and climate? Through the Paris Agreement, developed and developing countries committed to actions to limit the average increase in global temperatures to below 2 degrees centigrade and to pursue efforts to further limit this to 1.5 above pre-industrial levels. Capping global warming at 1.5 requires that global emissions reach net zero by 2050, according to the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Now, meeting this target requires a large-scale mobilization of political and economic capital to accelerate the processes of replacing carbon-intensive energy infrastructure with low-carbon energy sources. However, as we all know, many African countries are at crossroads. They're actually in a dilemma between meeting climate change commitments, exploiting their oil and gas resources to address glaring energy poverty. 600 million energy poor people are in this continent, and also raising domestic revenues for jumpstarting their economies, which are reeling from the shocks of COVID-19 and now a war in Ukraine, which they have had nothing to do with, didn't cause it, but they have to pay and suffer the consequences. At the same time, the effects of climate change are undeniable. They are here with us, including severe and present droughts that we are seeing in the Horn of Africa, in the Sahel. We're also seeing many storms, recurrent storms in Southern Africa, in Mozambique, in Malawi, in South Africa, in Durban just the other day. On oil and gas, several African countries are gearing up towards commercial production of their newfound oil and gas resources, including Uganda, in Tanzania, in countries like Mozambique, Kenya, while economies like Nigeria, Angola, South Africa, and Ghana, and South Sudan already rely heavily on proceeds from oil and gas. The countries like Uganda were full of hope that finally they are on takeoff. I recall a meeting we had with President Museveni sometime in 2018. Gerald Yarhaga, my colleague, will remember this. We had met him to discuss revenue risks. In many ways, he was saying that finally our problems are behind us. Well, are we really behind us? Are these problems really behind us? Time is telling us to think otherwise. So how do we win such countries which were very hopeful from dependence on oil and gas without collapsing their economies and worsening inequality? How do we ensure that African countries that have traditionally contributed least to global carbon emissions, 5% for Africa, are not disproportionately punished for the sins of the leading global emitters, so that yet again, we do not suffer more centuries of staying behind as a continent, as a people, as a race? Part of the answer must not only be on what we will do with the reality of stranded oil assets, but also how we maximize the benefits from critical minerals that will be needed to resource the inevitable energy transition. We know that Africa has historically remained an exporter of raw minerals with limited participation in the entire minerals value chain, and that we have glaring gaps in natural resource governance, so that whatever has been there from the minerals has least benefited people, only the elite and their corporate friends, the political elite. The EU Agenda 2063 envisions African countries being able to harness their natural resources, such as minerals, to benefit countries and their people. Scaling up renewable energy options will require an unprecedented increase in production of critical minerals such as copper, cobalt, lithium, iron ore, and rare earth elements, many of which are available on the African continent. The limited supply and race to control the critical extractive mineral resources could, shall I say, will fuel corruption and conflict rather than powering development in supply countries. I had a meeting with former President of Nigeria, President Olusegun Obasanjo, about 2 weeks ago. One of the things he told me was this: my son, just the other day, I learned that between DRC and Zambia lies 70% of the wild cobalt resources. The challenge of every African is to see how the resources that we have, at least the resources we still have, actually are harnessed to benefit the people of Africa and not people from without the continent. I believe the organizers of this webinar have convened this conversation so that, in my opinion, we can begin to answer some of the most urgent questions and address dilemmas facing Africa, but also point us to the opportunities we as a continent should seize. How should Africa position itself to ensure that the inevitable or even imminent minerals boom is beneficial to its people, so that we don't lose the century yet again? How do we leverage the Africa mining vision in this era to ensure that African citizens are part of the energy transition in participatory and meaningful ways? Today's discussion will provoke our thinking about geopolitical considerations for the energy transition in Africa and hopefully generate key issues that political leaders in the continent and policymakers and in the continent but also in the world will need to consider, ensuring a truly just transition for the people of Africa, a transition that will reduce, not increase, the huge inequalities we have seen and continue to suffer. We have the right people to discuss, and on that note, I therefore welcome you all and wish you fruitful deliberations. I thank you, and moderator, let me end there. Thank you very much. Good afternoon.